Is that on? And now we move on to part 2 of every team's worst selection, as we start off with Hawthorn. Hawthorn, they're a team who rarely make a bad pick, but when they make a very bad pick, well, historically we'll have to look back at 2002 for this one. Hawthorn had the 8th pick. Hamish McIntosh was available. They needed a replacement ruckman for Sean Wren. Also, even Nick Malcheski was still on the board for the Hawks. The Hawks have chosen to skip on Nick Malcheski a couple of times for Lockie Veal and Luke Brannan. Luke Brannan played like 11 games for the Hawks in 4 years. He was one of their worst first round. He was one of their first round picks from the pre-Clarko era. And their worst pick currently, we have to go to. We might have to cheat a little. Bit in this one for one of the later picks. In 20. Well, we go to 2020 for this one. Hawthorn have the 6th pick. Nick Cox was available. Archie Perkins was available. Jack Jenovan was available. And another, Bo McCreary was still on the board for the Hawks. So too was Max Hobbs. The Hawks chose Denver Granger Barras, whose last game at the club was 2023, and now he's been delisted by the Hawks. And now we go to Melbourne. Well, I think over the years, Melbourne have made a few shocking selections in the draft. None more so than 2001. Melbourne had the 9th pick. Their guy they wanted, Jimmy Bartell, was not there anymore, as Geelong got him. There was a list of names still on the board for Melbourne. Nick Dalsano, James Kelly, Lee Montagna, Sam Mitchell, Jared Waite, Aaron Sandilands, Matthew Boyd, Ben Rutten, Nathan Buck, and the list goes on and on. Melbourne chose Luke Mullen. No relation to my favourite Richmond AFL women's player from historically Sophie Marlin. Back to Luke. He had 9 games for Melbourne and didn't kick a single goal. And he spent most of his career getting injured. That was not a good pick for the Demons. Now we go to North Melbourne. One of the shocking selections the Kangaroos have made. Historically, we have to go back to 2000 for this one. The Kangaroos at the 6th pick. They could have had Sean Burgoyne. They could have had Scott Thompson. They could have had Kane Collins. They could have had anyone good to replace Peter Bell, who was the heart and soul of their midfield. They chose Dylan Smith. He had no midfield capabilities about him. He was just there to be a forward. And he kicked just 1 goal in 11 games for the Kangaroos. And they played a further 10 games for Freo as Peter Bell's teammate. And 2003, they chose David Trotter ahead of David Mundy. Another bad pick for North. And currently their worst pick is 2018. They had the 8th pick. They had their chance to take Zach Butters. They had their chance to take Nick Blakey, father-son. But they chose Taron Thomas from their Tasmania Academy. Well, he was a good player on the field, but when is he going to learn how not to stalk women? That was why North got rid of him after 5 years. Now we go to Port Adelaide. Worst pick for Port Adelaide. Historically, we have to go to 2009 for this one. They had 2 picks back to back. The Power had their chance to take Daniel Talia, Nat Fife, but they chose John Butcher and Andrew Moore. Bad pickups for the Power. Well, Andrew Moore looked right in the finals in 2014. But John Butcher made no impact at Port Adelaide. Even though I didn't meet him back when I was at high school, and he seemed like a nice bloke. However, their current day worst selection for the Power, we have to go to the 2017 draft from this one. The Power had their chance to take Liam Baker, but instead they chose Jake Patmore. No games for the Power in his career. Now for the mighty yellow and black of Richmond. The Tigers, their historically worst pick. They had from the last 30 years, they had the third pick in 1999. The Tigers had the opportunity to team Matthew Richardson up with Matthew Pavlich. But they chose another kid from South Australia, Aaron Fiora. 81 games for the Tigers and a further 45 games for the Saints. Average. Their current day worst selection at the moment, we have to go to 2018 for this one. The Tigers had their chance to take James Rowbottom, who I've mentioned so many times in this video. They chose Riley Collier-Dawkins, barely played for the club. Couldn't get into the team when they were in their golden period, but struggled to find a way to get in the team when they were starting to rebuild. Now we go to the Saints. I would like to give a shout out to Carbman22 for this team. What do you think of this Saints scarf, buddy? Does that look really good on me? Anyway, back to their worst selections. Historically, the Saints, well, even though they picked Daniel Healy over Jared Crouch, I'm not going to mention this one, otherwise it would upset Daniel Healy. He's a nice bloke. Let's take a look about another bad selection they had historically. We go to 2010 for this one. The Saints had their chance to take Paul Piopolo, but instead they chose Sam Crocker. No games for Saints. Pretty much couldn't even hold a candle wearing number 9 to Fraser Garrick. Historically, their current day worst selection for the Saints. We have to go to 2017 for this one. They had the 7th and 8th picks. They skipped on Aaron Norton twice. They skipped on Darcy Fogarty twice. They've skipped out on Zach Bailey twice. They skipped out on Brandon Starcevich twice. And Ed Richards twice. As they chose Hunter Clark and Nick Caulfield. They both had injury struggles over the years, and now Caulfield's on the Dogs, and Hunter Clark's struggling to get a game with the Saints. Let's go to the Swans. Sydney Swans are known to be the team that rarely makes a draft mistake. Classic example of their worst draft mistake, we have to go to 2006 for this one. They had the 15th pick. Robbie Gray was still available for the Swans. So was Sean Gregg. The Swans chose Daniel O'Keefe. No games for the Swans. In 2003, they chose Josh Willoughby ahead of David Mundy. No games for the Swans. Current day worst selection for the Swans. We have to go to 2019. They need a new defender. Josh Worrell was available for Sydney. Trent Rivers was available for the Swans. Those defenders could have helped them win a grand final or two. But they chose Will Gould. Only played one season for the club before getting delisted, and if you're watching this video, Will Gould, I wish you the best of luck on your journey to get to the NFL. We move on to the Eagles of West Coast. West Coast, their worst selection in the draft. We have to go to 2014 for this one. They had the 28th pick in the draft. West Coast had their chance to take Bailey Dale and Caleb Daniel. They chose Tom Lamb. One game for the club, and that was a loss against the Western Bulldogs. And after that, he was banished to the Waffle after that and was delisted. That was a bad pick from the Eagles. Current day worst selection they've got the 28th pick in 2018. Justin McInerney was available for the Eagles. They chose Luke Foley. Rarely played for the club. No relation to ex-Richmond player Nathan Foley, or no relation to ex-High Five member who was another Nathan Foley. Now we go to the Western Bulldogs. The last team in the video, the Dogs. Their current day worst selection, their historically worst pick they got. They had the 4th pick in 2002. Andrew Mackey was available for the Dogs, so was Jared McVeigh. The Dogs chose Tim Walsh. 1 game and 1 goal for the club in 5 years. Pathetic. And current day worst selection for the Dogs. It's 2022 for this one. They got they had the 13th pick. The Dogs, Josh Weddle was available for the Dogs. They chose Jed Buslinger, even though it's a bit too early to call. But come on, Luke Beveridge, give him some more time. He'll prove me wrong in this video. And that is it for the worst draft selections in the last 30 years video.